49 miles off the coast of Louisiana, a drilling rig the size of a football field floats on the surface of the Gulf of Mexico. Beneath it, a well extends nearly 18,000 feet into the ocean floor, reaching into a reservoir of oil and gas under enormous pressure. The well is 43 days behind schedule. It has cost $58 million more than planned. The company that owns the well, BP, is losing over $1 million a day in rig rental costs alone. So they start cutting corners. They skip a critical cement bond test. They use fewer centralizers than their own engineers recommend. They interpret failed pressure tests as passing. And on the evening of April 20, 2010, the well blows out. Methane gas rockets up the drill pipe, erupts through the rig floor, and explodes. 11 workers are killed. The rig burns for 36 hours and sinks. And for the next 87 days, oil pours into the Gulf of Mexico at a rate of 60,000 barrels per day. It is the worst environmental disaster in American history. This is the story of Deepwater Horizon. The Deepwater Horizon was a semi-submersible drilling rig owned by Transocean, the world's largest offshore drilling contractor. Built in South Korea in 2001, it was a marvel of engineering. It could operate in waters up to 10,000 feet deep and drill wells down to 35,000 feet below the seafloor. In 2010, BP was leasing the rig for approximately $533,000 per day to drill an exploratory well called Macondo, in the Mississippi Canyon Block 252 of the Gulf of Mexico. The Macondo well had been a nightmare from the start. The geology was difficult. The well had already suffered a partial collapse and had to be sidetracked, an expensive and time-consuming process where the drill path is redirected around the problem zone. The project was weeks behind schedule and tens of millions over budget. Every additional day meant another $500,000 in rig costs alone. This financial pressure would drive every fatal decision that followed. The first critical shortcut involved the well design itself. When drilling deep wells, operators install steel casing pipes to line the wellbore and prevent the surrounding rock and fluid from collapsing into the hole. BP chose to use a single long string of casing rather than a more expensive but safer liner antibac design. The single string was cheaper and faster to install. It also provided fewer barriers against a blowout. BP's own engineers had identified this as a higher-risk option. Internal documents later revealed during investigations showed that BP engineers had flagged the well as having a severe risk of gas flow. These warnings were acknowledged but not acted upon. The second critical failure was the cement job. Halliburton, the company contracted to cement the well, pumped cement into the annular space between the casing and the rock formation. This cement plug is the primary barrier preventing oil and gas from flowing up the well. But the cement mixture used at Macondo was unstable. Halliburton's own laboratory tests, conducted before the job, showed that the foam cement slurry was failing. The results indicated the cement would not hold. These test results were either not communicated to the rig or were ignored. BP also decided to use only 6 centralizers instead of the 21 recommended by Halliburton. Centralizers are devices that keep the casing centered in the wellbore, ensuring cement flows evenly around it. Without enough centralizers, the cement can channel, leaving gaps where gas can flow through. BP's own engineer wrote in an email that using fewer centralizers could result in a severe gas flow problem. The decision was made anyway. 6 centralizers were used. After the cement was pumped, the standard industry practice is to run a cement bond log, a test that uses sound waves to verify the cement has properly sealed the well. A team from Schlumberger, a third company, was already on the rig, specifically brought aboard to run this test. BP decided to skip it. The Schlumberger team was sent home without running the test. This decision saved BP approximately $128,000 and about 12 hours of rig time. The final and most damning failure was the negative pressure test. This test simulates what would happen if the heavy drilling mud inside the well were removed. If the well is properly sealed by cement, the pressure should remain stable. If gas is leaking through the cement, pressure will build. On the afternoon of April 20, the crew ran the negative pressure test. The results were alarming. Pressure readings on the drill pipe showed increasing pressure when they should have shown zero. This was a clear indication that the cement barrier had failed and gas was entering the well. What happened next would become one of the most analyzed decisions in industrial disaster history. Instead of recognizing the failed test, the crew and BP's well site leaders reinterpreted the results. They attributed the anomalous pressure to a phenomenon called the bladder effect, claiming that pressure trapped in the drill pipe was creating a false reading. They ran the test again, this time monitoring a different pressure line, the kill line, which showed lower pressure. They declared the test a success. Multiple crew members were not convinced. Transocean's senior toolpusher, and several experienced drill crew members expressed concern. But the decision to proceed came from BP's well site leaders, and it stood. At approximately 9 p.m., as the crew was displacing the heavy drilling mud from the well with lighter seawater, the final barrier was removed. The underbalanced well, sealed by nothing but failed cement, could no longer contain the enormous reservoir pressure from nearly 18,000 feet below. Methane gas surged up the wellbore. It traveled up through the failed cement, through the gaps left by insufficient centralizers, through the casing that had only a single barrier, and up the drill pipe at incredible speed. It erupted through the rig floor. The gas hit the diesel engines that powered the rig. Diesel engines cannot be shut down in the presence of methane. They run faster and faster as they ingest the gas, a process called a runaway. The engines over-revved and the gas ignited. The first explosion ripped through the rig at approximately 9:49 p.m. A massive fireball engulfed the derrick. A second explosion followed within seconds. The force of the blasts was felt on vessels miles away. In the chaos, crew members had only minutes to react. Some made it to lifeboats. Others jumped from the rig into the dark ocean, a fall of nearly 75 feet. 11 workers never made it off. They were on or near the drill floor when the explosion occurred. Their bodies were never recovered. The rig burned through the night and into the next day. On April 22, the Deepwater Horizon capsized and sank, coming to rest on the ocean floor approximately 1,500 feet from the wellhead. The sinking damaged the drill pipe and riser, and oil began flowing freely into the Gulf. For 87 days, the Macondo well gushed. Multiple attempts to cap it failed. A containment dome was lowered over the leak but was blocked by ice-like methane hydrate crystals. A top-kill attempt, pumping heavy mud and cement into the well from above, failed against the enormous pressure. A junk shot, pumping golf balls and rope into the blowout preventer, also failed. Meanwhile, approximately 210 million gallons of crude oil poured into the Gulf of Mexico. The oil slick covered up to 68,000 square miles of ocean surface at its peak. It contaminated 1,100 miles of coastline across 5 states. Marine life was devastated. An estimated 1 million seabirds, 5,000 marine mammals, and 1,000 sea turtles were killed. The fishing and tourism industries along the Gulf Coast suffered billions in losses. Communities that depended on the ocean for their livelihoods were economically destroyed. The well was finally sealed on September 19, 2010, 152 days after the blowout, when a relief well successfully intercepted the Macondo wellbore and pumped cement to permanently plug it. The investigations that followed revealed a systematic pattern of cost-cutting and risk acceptance by BP. The Presidential Commission on the Deepwater Horizon found that the disaster was caused by a series of identifiable mistakes made by BP, Halliburton, and Transocean that reveal systemic failures in risk management. Individual decisions to cut costs and save time created an accumulating risk that went unmanaged until it was too late. BP's total costs for the disaster exceeded $65 billion, including cleanup costs, environmental restoration, economic claims, and legal penalties. In 2012, BP pleaded guilty to 11 counts of felony manslaughter, 1 count of felony obstruction of Congress, and violations of the Clean Water Act. The company paid $4.5 billion in criminal fines, the largest criminal penalty in United States history at the time. Two BP well site leaders, Robert Kaluza and Donald Vidrine, were charged with manslaughter. Vidrine pleaded guilty to a misdemeanor. Kaluza was acquitted. No BP executive served significant prison time. The Deepwater Horizon disaster changed offshore drilling regulation permanently. The Minerals Management Service, the federal agency responsible for overseeing offshore drilling that had been criticized for being too close to the industry it regulated, was abolished and replaced with new agencies with stricter oversight. New rules required more rigorous testing of blowout preventers and cement barriers. But the core lesson of Deepwater Horizon is not about regulations or technology. It is about what happens when financial pressure overrides engineering judgment. Every critical safety decision on the Macondo well was influenced by the fact that the project was behind schedule and over budget. Skip the cement test, save 12 hours. Use fewer centralizers, save time. Reinterpret failed pressure tests, avoid delays. Each individual shortcut seemed manageable. Together, they created an unstoppable chain of failure. The 11 workers who died on the Deepwater Horizon trusted that the people making decisions above them were putting safety first. They were wrong. And 210 million gallons of oil in the Gulf of Mexico is the permanent reminder of what happens when an organization decides that schedule and budget matter more than the warnings its own engineers are shouting.